The champagne tasted like corporate lies, and I was drowning in both. "Jack, honey, come meet the regional team." Lila's voice cut through the cocktail chatter like a knife through butter. My wife of 8 years stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 42nd floor, her red dress catching the city lights below. She looked perfect, as always, too perfect. I adjusted my tie, the one she'd picked out because it complemented her outfit, and made my way through the crowd of suits and forced smiles. This was Lila's world: glass towers, expense accounts, and people who measured success in quarterly reports. I was just the arm candy tonight, the supportive husband she could parade around while networking her way up the corporate ladder. "Everyone, this is my husband Jack," she announced to a circle of executives. "He works in, what do you call it again, honey? Car computers?" "Telematics," I corrected with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I help companies track their fleet vehicles, analyze driving patterns, optimize routes. It's more interesting than it sounds." The regional sales director, a guy named Travis Holt, stepped forward with his hand extended. Mid-40s, expensive suit, wedding ring that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Fascinating stuff, Jack. The data you can pull from those systems these days is incredible." I shook his hand, noting the firm grip and direct eye contact. Travis was the kind of guy who'd practiced his handshake in a mirror. You'd be surprised what people don't realize their cars are recording. Every trip, every stop, every deviation from normal patterns. It's all there if you know how to look. Something flickered across Travis's face, just for a second, before his salesman's smile returned. "Well, aren't you the detective?" Lila laughed, a sound like crystal breaking. "Oh, Jack's always been good with gadgets and computers. It's his thing." The way she said it made my hobby sound like collecting stamps. "I'm going to freshen my drink," I announced, needing space from the suffocating small talk. The bar was set up near the conference room, manned by a professional bartender who looked as out of place as I felt. "Whiskey, neat," I ordered, watching the amber liquid splash into the glass. The bartender nodded knowingly. He'd probably served a dozen guys like me tonight, husbands dragged to corporate events where they didn't belong. "Make it a double." I turned to find Miranda Page standing beside me. Lila's boss, the regional director, a woman in her late 40s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She wore power like other people wore cologne. Subtly, but you always knew it was there. "Rough night?" she asked, ordering a gin martini. "Just not my crowd," I admitted. "I'm more comfortable with diagnostic cables than networking cables." Miranda laughed. A genuine sound, unlike the manufactured chuckles floating around the party. "I appreciate honesty. It's rare in this business." She studied me over her martini glass. "Your wife speaks highly of you." "Does she?" I glanced back toward Lila, who was deep in conversation with Travis and two other executives. They stood close together, their body language suggesting familiarity beyond professional courtesy. "She says you're brilliant with technology, that you could probably hack into anything if you wanted to." "I don't hack," I said firmly. "I work with legitimate data recovery and analysis. Big difference." "Of course." Miranda's smile was enigmatic. "Still, it must be useful having those skills, especially in a marriage." There was something in her tone that made me look at her more carefully. "What do you mean?" She sipped her martini, considering her words. "Oh, nothing specific. Just that trust is so important in a relationship, don't you think? And sometimes technology can either build that trust or reveal when it's been misplaced." Before I could respond, she was moving closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Jack, can I ask you something personal?" The party noise seemed to fade around us. "Sure." "Are you happy?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth to give the standard answer. Of course, why wouldn't I be? But nothing came out. Miranda nodded as if my silence confirmed something. "I thought so. You have that look?" "What look?" "The look of a man who's been taking care of everyone else's needs while his own go unmet." She finished her martini and set the glass on the bar. "Jack, I'm going to make you an offer, and I want you to think carefully before you answer." My heart started beating faster. "Okay. Stay with me tonight. You'll want the company, trust me." I nearly choked on my whiskey. "Miranda, I'm flattered, but I'm married." She smiled, but there was no humor in it. Just sadness and something that looked like pity. "No, Jack, you're not married anymore." "What are you talking about?" Miranda pulled out her phone, swiped to the photo gallery, and turned the screen toward me. The image was crystal clear. Lila and Travis in what looked like a hotel room, their arms around each other, kissing like teenagers. The world tilted sideways. "Your wife has been sleeping with my husband for the past 6 months," Miranda said quietly. All those late meetings, weekend conferences, business trips that seemed to line up perfectly with his schedule, it wasn't a coincidence. I stared at the photo, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. Lila's red lipstick on Travis's collar, his hand on her waist, the intimate way they looked at each other. "How long have you known?" I managed to ask. 2 months. I hired a private investigator when Travis started working late every night. Imagine my surprise when I discovered he wasn't working alone. Miranda's voice was steady, but I could hear the pain underneath. I've been waiting for the right moment to address it. Tonight seemed appropriate. I looked across the room at Lila, who was laughing at something Travis had said. Her hand briefly touched his arm, a gesture I'd seen 100 times but never understood the meaning of. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because we're both in the same boat, Jack, and I believe in evening the score." Miranda moved closer, her perfume mixing with the scent of gin and corporate ambition. "So I'll ask again. Stay with me tonight. Two can play their game." Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was a bad idea. Revenge night with my wife's boss. It sounded like the plot of a bad movie, but as I watched Lila and Travis together, saw the easy intimacy between them, felt the weight of months of lies and deception, something cold and hard settled in my chest. "Yes," I said. Miranda smiled, a real smile this time. "Good. Get your coat." As we walked toward the elevator, I caught Lila's eye across the room. Her face went white when she saw me leaving with Miranda. Travis noticed her reaction and followed her gaze, his confident expression faltering when he realized what was happening. The elevator doors closed on their shocked faces, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Power. "You know," Miranda said as we descended toward the parking garage, "I have a feeling this is going to be the beginning of a very interesting partnership." I thought about my laptop at home, loaded with telematics software and data recovery tools. About the GPS tracking capabilities in Lila's car that she'd never bothered to understand. About the digital footprints that people like Travis left everywhere, thinking they were invisible. "Miranda," I said, "you have no idea." The morning after felt like waking up in someone else's life. I sat in Miranda's downtown apartment, drinking coffee from a mug that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget, watching the sunrise paint the city gold. She'd already left for an early meeting, but not before giving me her business card with her personal number written on the back. "Call me when you're ready to discuss our mutual problem," she'd said, kissing my cheek like we'd been lovers for years instead of hours. My phone buzzed with the 5th text from Lila. "Where are you? We need to talk." I deleted it without responding and drove home to my cramped apartment in the old part of town. The contrast between Miranda's sleek high-rise and my converted warehouse space couldn't have been starker, but I preferred it here. Real brick walls, exposed pipes, and enough room to spread out my equipment without worrying about damaging someone's imported marble. Lila's car wasn't in our shared parking spot. Good. I needed time to think. My laptop was exactly where I'd left it on the kitchen table, surrounded by diagnostic cables and GPS modules from my latest client project. I'd been helping a delivery company optimize their routes, analyzing months of driving data to find inefficiencies. The same skills that made me good at my job could easily be applied to other vehicles, like the BMW that Lila drove, equipped with the latest telematics package. I'd installed the system myself 2 years ago, selling it to her as a security feature. "If the car gets stolen, we can track it anywhere," I'd explained. What I hadn't mentioned was that the system logged every trip, every stop, every destination. The data uploaded automatically to a cloud server that I had administrative access to. I opened the tracking software and pulled up Lila's vehicle history for the past 6 months. What I found made my coffee taste like acid. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Lila's car made an unscheduled stop at the Riverside Hotel downtown. The timestamp showed she'd arrive around noon and leave by 2 p.m., perfectly timed to coincide with her lunch meetings with clients. I cross-referenced the dates with Travis's business calendar, which was publicly available through his company's website. His client lunches matched Lila's hotel visits with surgical precision. My phone rang. Frankie's name appeared on the screen. "Jack, you need to get down to the shop." My best friend's voice was urgent. "There's something you need to see." Frankie Moretti ran Moretti's Auto Repair, a family business that had been fixing cars in this neighborhood for 3 generations. He was the closest thing to a brother I'd ever had, and one of the few people who knew about my technical skills beyond simple car repair. I found him in the main bay, elbow deep in the engine of a Ford pickup. His coveralls were stained with oil and determination. "What's so urgent?" I asked. Frankie straightened up, wiping his hands on a shop rag. "Your wife was here yesterday." "Lila? Why would she come here?" That's what I wondered. She said her car was making a strange noise, wanted me to take a look. Frankie's expression was grim. Jack, there was nothing wrong with that car. Nothing at all. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. What did she really want? She started asking questions about you, about your work, your clients, what kind of access you have to vehicle systems. Frankie pulled a small device from his workbench. Then she asked me to install this. I recognized the device immediately, a GPS jammer designed to block tracking signals, high-end, expensive, and definitely not something you'd find at your local auto parts store. She wanted to disable her car's tracking system? Without you knowing about it, she offered me $500 cash to install it and keep quiet. Frankie tossed the device back on the bench. I told her I was too busy, but Jack, she's planning something. The pieces clicked into place. Lila had seen me leave with Miranda last night. She knew her secret was blown, and now she was trying to cover her tracks. The GPS jammer would make her car invisible to my tracking software, giving her the freedom to meet Travis without leaving digital evidence. There's more, Frankie continued. After she left, I got curious. I know you've got access to all kinds of vehicle data, so I did some digging of my own. He led me to his office, a cluttered space that smelled like motor oil and old coffee. Remember Travis Holt, that sales guy from Lila's company? Yeah, I met him last night. He brings his Mercedes here for service, has for about a year now. Frankie pulled out a thick file folder. I keep detailed records of all my customers' vehicles, including mileage logs and service dates. Look at this. He spread out several invoices on his desk. Each one showed Travis's Mercedes coming in for oil changes, tire rotations, and routine maintenance. But it was the mileage logs that caught my attention. See this pattern? Every month, his car racks up an extra 200 miles beyond his normal commute. Always the same dates, always the same amount. Frankie pointed to the numbers. I started paying attention after the third month. Those extra miles? They match up perfectly with trips to the Riverside Hotel and back. I stared at the evidence, feeling a mix of admiration for Frankie's detective work and rage at the systematic nature of Lila and Travis's deception. How long have you suspected? About 2 months. I was going to tell you, but I wasn't sure how. Frankie's expression was apologetic. Then your wife showed up yesterday asking about GPS jammers, and I knew something was seriously wrong. My phone buzzed with another text from Lila. Jack, please come home. We need to talk about last night. I showed the message to Frankie, who snorted. Now she wants to talk. Convenient timing. I need to ask you for a favor, I said. Name it. I want to install a dashcam in Lila's car. Something discreet that she won't notice. Frankie grinned. I've got just the thing. High definition, motion activated, uploads footage to a cloud server in real time. Your wife won't even know it's there. How long would it take to install? 20 minutes if I have access to the car. I pulled out my phone and typed a response to Lila. At Frankie's shop, car trouble. Can you pick me up? Her reply came back immediately. On my way. Frankie and I spent the next 15 minutes preparing. The dashcam was smaller than a matchbox, designed to look like part of the car's original equipment. It would record everything, audio and video, and automatically upload to a secure server that only I could access. Lila arrived 20 minutes later, her BMW purring into the shop's parking lot. She looked nervous, her usual confidence replaced by something that looked almost like fear. Car trouble? She asked, kissing my cheek with lips that felt cold. Just a minor issue with my diagnostic equipment. Frankie's letting me use his backup system. I gestured toward his computer setup. Should be done in a few minutes. While I kept Lila distracted with technical talk, Frankie worked his magic on her car. The dashcam installation was invisible, hidden behind the rearview mirror where it looked like a factory sensor. All set, Frankie announced, wiping his hands on his coveralls. You should be good to go. As we drove home, Lila seemed unusually chatty. So what were you and Miranda talking about last night? You two seemed to hit it off. I kept my eyes on the road. Just business stuff. She was asking about telematics applications for fleet management. Is that all? The question hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. I could feel Lila watching me, trying to read my expression, searching for any sign that I knew about her and Travis. What else would it be? I asked. She relaxed slightly. Nothing. You left the party so suddenly. I wasn't feeling well. Too much champagne on an empty stomach. We pulled into our apartment complex, and I noticed Travis's Mercedes parked in the visitor section. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Expecting company? I asked. Lila followed my gaze, and her face went pale. Oh, that's Travis wanted to discuss some project details. I forgot he was coming by. The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly that I almost admired her skill. Almost. I'll make myself scarce, I said. Give you two some privacy for your business meeting. As I walked toward our apartment building, I pulled out my phone and opened the dashcam app. The device was already online, its camera pointed directly at Travis's Mercedes. Whatever happened next, I'd have it all on record. The dashcam footage was better than I'd hoped. 3 days of recording had captured everything. Travis arriving at our apartment complex, staying for exactly 2 hours each visit, leaving with his shirt slightly wrinkled and his hair mussed. The audio was crystal clear too, thanks to the car's windows being down during their goodbye conversations. Same time Thursday? Travis's voice came through my laptop speakers. I'll tell Jack I have a client dinner, Lila replied. He never questions work stuff. I sat in my apartment at 2 a.m., headphones on, watching my marriage dissolve in high-definition video. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. I'd already accepted that. It was the casual way they discussed deceiving me, like I was some obstacle to be managed rather than a human being with feelings. My phone rang. Miranda's name appeared on the screen. Can't sleep either? She asked without preamble. Not exactly. I've been doing some research. Find anything interesting? I looked at the evidence spread across my desk. GPS logs, service records, dashcam footage, and financial documents I'd pulled from our joint accounts. More than interesting, incriminating. I'm listening. It's not just an affair, Miranda. They're running a financial scheme through your company. I opened the bank statements on my laptop. Lila's been receiving payments from a shell company called Riverside Holdings. 3 deposits in the past 2 months, each for $5,000. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, Riverside Holdings is one of Travis's preferred vendors. They handle promotional materials for his biggest clients. Except Riverside Holdings doesn't exist. It's just a bank account and a P.O. box. I'd spent hours tracing the company's registration, following a paper trail that led nowhere. Travis is funneling money from his vendor budget to Lila, probably in exchange for inside information about upcoming contracts. That son of a bitch! Miranda's voice was ice cold. He's been using pillow talk to rig bids. It gets worse. Lila's been accessing confidential project files that she shouldn't have clearance for. I found evidence of after-hours logins to your company's system, always on days when she met with Travis. I heard Miranda typing in the background. I'm looking at our security logs now. You're right. She's been in files for projects worth millions of dollars. The question is, what do we do about it? We destroy them, Miranda said without hesitation. Both of them. Professionally, financially, and personally. There was something in her tone that made me pause. Miranda, I want them exposed, but I don't want to do anything illegal. Who said anything about illegal? Everything they've done leaves a paper trail. We just need to make sure the right people see it. Over the next hour, we developed a plan. Miranda would arrange for a special charity gala at the office, ostensibly to raise money for local causes. The real purpose would be to gather all the key players, Lila, Travis, their colleagues, and several important clients, in one room for the reveal. I have access to the AV system in our main conference room, Miranda explained. We can display everything on the big screen, the GPS logs, the financial records, the dashcam footage, public humiliation in front of their peers and clients. What about the legal implications? The embezzlement? I'll make sure HR and our legal department are present. They'll have no choice but to terminate both of them immediately, and the evidence will be strong enough to pursue criminal charges if we choose to. After we hung up, I spent another hour organizing the evidence into a presentation, each slide built on the last, telling the story of deception and fraud in clear, undeniable terms. By the time I finished, the sun was rising over the city, painting my apartment in shades of gold and orange. Lila came home around 8 a.m., claiming she'd been at an early client breakfast. She looked tired, her makeup slightly smudged, her clothes wrinkled in a way that suggested she hadn't slept in them. How was your meeting? I asked, not looking up from my laptop. Productive. We landed the Morrison account. She poured herself coffee with shaking hands. What are you working on? Client presentation. Vehicle tracking analysis for a corporate investigation. The irony wasn't lost on me. Lila showered and changed for work, chattering about her day while I pretended to listen. She mentioned having lunch with a potential client. Code for another hotel meeting with Travis, according to the pattern I'd identified. Oh, by the way, she said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror, Miranda's organizing some kind of charity event at the office tomorrow night. All the regional staff are required to attend. Sounds important. She specifically asked me to make sure you come. Said something about recognizing supportive spouses. Lila's reflection smiled at me. I think she likes you. If only she knew how much. After Lila left for work, I called Frankie to give him an update. You're really going through with this? He asked. They've been lying to me for months, stealing from Miranda's company and treating me like an idiot. Yeah, I'm going through with it. Just be careful, Jack. People do crazy things when they're cornered. That's why I need one more favor. What now? I want you to be at the charity gala tomorrow night. Bring Gina from Murphy's Bar. She's got connections with half the business community in this city. When this goes down, I want word to spread fast. Frankie chuckled. You want to make sure their reputation is destroyed beyond repair. Exactly. By the time we're done, Travis and Lila won't be able to get jobs cleaning toilets in this town. That afternoon, I received a call from Detective Ray Wallace, an old friend who'd left the police force to become a private investigator. Miranda had hired him to dig deeper into Travis's financial activities. Your boss lady doesn't mess around, Ray said. I've found evidence of at least 6 other shell companies that Travis has been using to launder money through his vendor accounts. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past 2 years. Is it enough for criminal charges? More than enough. I've already contacted the FBI's white-collar crime division. They're very interested in Mr. Holt's creative accounting methods. I felt a surge of satisfaction. Travis wasn't just going to lose his job, he was looking at serious federal charges. What about Lila? She's definitely involved, but it looks like she was more of a tool than a mastermind. Travis has been using her access to company information to identify the most profitable contracts to target. Ray paused. That might actually make things worse for her legally. Conspiracy to commit fraud carries the same penalties as fraud itself. As I hung up the phone, I realized that tomorrow night would change everything. By this time next week, Lila and Travis would be unemployed, facing criminal charges, and social pariahs in their professional community. I should have felt guilty about orchestrating their downfall. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: anticipation. The underdog was about to bite back, and it was going to leave permanent scars. The conference room at Meridian Financial looked like a scene from a corporate fairy tale. Miranda had spared no expense for the charity gala. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and enough flowers to stock a wedding. The guest list read like a who's who of the city's business elite, exactly what we needed for maximum impact. I arrived early, wearing my best suit and carrying a laptop bag that contained the ammunition for tonight's war. Miranda greeted me at the door, looking stunning in a black evening gown that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Ready for this? She asked, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what we were about to do. More than ready. We'd rehearsed the plan a dozen times. The evening would begin with cocktails and networking, followed by dinner and a presentation about the company's charitable initiatives. During dessert, Miranda would announce a special recognition for outstanding employees, at which point I would take control of the AV system and reveal everything. Lila arrived 20 minutes later, radiant in a red dress that hugged her curves in all the right places. She'd spent 2 hours getting ready, applying makeup with the precision of a surgeon. She looked like a woman who expected to be celebrated tonight. Travis entered shortly after, his confidence evident in every step. He worked the room like a politician, shaking hands and slapping backs, his wedding ring catching the light as he gestured. His wife Melinda stood beside him, a quiet woman who seemed uncomfortable in the spotlight her husband craved. Jack? Lila appeared at my elbow, champagne glass in hand. Isn't this wonderful? Miranda really outdid herself. She certainly did, I agreed, watching Miranda across the room as she chatted with the head of HR and the company's legal counsel. Both women had been briefed on tonight's real agenda and were positioned to take immediate action when the evidence was revealed. I heard through the grapevine that some employees are getting special recognition tonight, Travis said, joining our conversation. His smile was predatory. Any idea who made the list? I'm sure it will be a surprise for everyone, I replied. Dinner was torture. I sat between Lila and a client from the Morrison account, the same account that Lila claimed to have landed through her morning meeting. As the client described the bidding process, it became clear that inside information had played a crucial role in securing the contract. It was amazing how perfectly your proposal matched our needs, the client told Lila, almost like you knew exactly what we were looking for. Lila's laugh sounded forced. Just good research and attention to detail. Across the table, Travis raised his wine glass in a mock toast. To attention to detail, he said, his eyes meeting Lila's for a fraction too long. As dessert was served, Miranda stood and tapped her champagne flute with a knife. The room fell silent. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight to support such worthy causes. Before we conclude, I'd like to take a moment to recognize some of our outstanding team members. She gestured toward the large screen at the front of the room, which had been displaying the charity's logo throughout the evening. Tonight, we celebrate not just charitable giving, but the values that make our company strong: honesty, integrity, and transparency. That was my cue. I opened my laptop and connected to the room's wireless network, accessing the presentation system with credentials Miranda had provided. The charity logo disappeared, replaced by the title slide of my presentation, "A Case Study in Corporate Fraud." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Lila's face went white. Travis started to stand, but Miranda's voice cut through the noise. "Please, everyone, take your seats. What you're about to see is a comprehensive analysis of fraudulent activity within our organization, compiled by our guest expert in digital forensics, Jack Avery." I stood, feeling every eye in the room focused on me. "Thank you, Miranda. Over the past several months, I've been investigating a complex scheme involving vendor fraud, information theft, and embezzlement. The evidence speaks for itself." The first slide appeared, a timeline showing the correlation between Travis's vendor payments to Riverside Holdings and Lila's unauthorized access to confidential files. The dates matched perfectly, creating an undeniable pattern of coordination. "As you can see," I continued, "the defendants established a systematic method for stealing proprietary information and using it to manipulate contract awards." Travis shot to his feet. "This is ridiculous. I don't have to listen to these accusations." "Sit down, Travis." Miranda's voice was ice cold. "You'll want to see this next part." The screen changed to show bank records, deposits to Lila's personal account from Riverside Holdings, each one dated within 24 hours of a successful contract bid. The amounts were significant, enough to constitute felony fraud in any jurisdiction. Lila's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. "Jack, what are you doing?" "I'm conducting a midnight audit," I replied, advancing to the next slide, "and your accounts don't balance." The dashcam footage began playing. Crystal clear video of Travis and Lila's meetings, their discussions of contract details, their casual dismissal of the people they were deceiving. The audio was devastating, capturing not just evidence of fraud, but the callous attitude behind it. "Turn it off!" Lila screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the gasps and angry murmurs from the audience. The final slide was a summary of the financial damage. Over $300,000 in fraudulent contracts, $50,000 in direct payments to co-conspirators, and immeasurable harm to the company's reputation and competitive position. Miranda stepped forward as the presentation ended. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to assure you that Meridian Financial takes these matters seriously. Effective immediately, both Lila Avery and Travis Holt are terminated from their positions. Security will escort them from the building, and we will be pursuing all available legal remedies." The room exploded into chaos. Clients demanded explanations, employees whispered frantically to each other, and photographers from the local business journal, invited to cover the charity event, captured every moment for tomorrow's headlines. Travis made one last desperate play, pointing an accusing finger at me. "This is all fabricated. He's lying because he found out about the affair." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone and opening the FBI contact information that Detective Wallace had provided, "the federal investigators who've been reviewing your financial records for the past week seem to think otherwise." Travis's face crumbled as the implications hit him. Federal charges meant serious prison time, not just job loss and public humiliation. Security guards appeared at both exits, preventing any dramatic departures. Lila tried to approach me, tears streaming down her face, but I held up a hand to stop her. "The audit's complete, Lila. Your account is closed." As the guards escorted them out, I caught sight of Frankie and Gina near the back of the room. Gina was already on her phone, no doubt spreading word of the evening's events through her extensive network of contacts. By morning, everyone in the city's business community would know what had happened. Miranda appeared at my side as the crowd began to disperse. "How do you feel?" I watched through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Travis and Lila were led to separate police cars in the parking garage below. Their professional lives were over, their reputations destroyed, and their legal troubles just beginning. "Like I finally understand what justice looks like," I said. Miranda smiled. "Good, because this is just the beginning of our partnership." As we walked out together, leaving behind the wreckage of the evening's revelations, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting ahead. The underdog had bitten back, and the wounds would be permanent. 6 months later, I stood in the same conference room where it all began, but this time the atmosphere was celebration rather than destruction. The federal investigation had moved swiftly. Travis received 18 months in federal prison for wire fraud and conspiracy, while Lila got 12 months and community service in exchange for her cooperation. The shell companies were dissolved, the stolen money recovered, and both of their professional licenses permanently revoked. Miranda had been promoted to regional vice president, and I'd been hired as Meridian Financial's director of digital security, a position created specifically to prevent the kind of fraud we'd uncovered. My salary was triple what I'd made as a freelance consultant, and I had access to investigative tools that would have made my old self weep with envy. The Morrison account has been renewed for another 3 years, Miranda announced to the assembled staff. Thanks to our enhanced security protocols and transparent bidding process, we've actually strengthened our relationship with clients affected by the previous irregularities. Polite applause filled the room. The Travis and Lila scandal had become a case study in corporate fraud prevention, referenced in business schools and security conferences across the country. Meridian Financial's stock price had actually risen in the aftermath, as investors appreciated the company's decisive response to corruption. After the meeting, Miranda and I walked to her corner office, the same space where Travis had once plotted his schemes. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "Any word from our former colleagues?" she asked, settling behind her desk with a cup of coffee. "Travis is adjusting to prison life, according to Detective Wallace. Apparently, his cellmate is teaching him humility." I pulled out my tablet and showed her the latest updates. Lila finished her sentence last month. She's working at a call center in Phoenix using her maiden name. And Melinda? Divorced Travis while he was awaiting trial, took half his assets in the settlement. She's actually doing quite well, started her own consulting business and landed several major clients who were impressed by how she handled the scandal. Miranda nodded approvingly. Good for her. She deserved better than that snake. My phone buzzed with a text from Frankie. "Drinks at Murphy's tonight? Gina wants to hear about your latest case." I showed the message to Miranda, who smiled. "Go ahead. You've earned it." As I packed up my things, I reflected on how much my life had changed. The cramped apartment had been replaced by a downtown loft with a view of the river. The diagnostic cables and GPS modules had given way to enterprise-level security systems and federal law enforcement contacts. Most importantly, the constant feeling of being underestimated and overlooked had been replaced by professional respect and personal satisfaction. The elevator descended toward the parking garage, and I thought about that night 6 months ago when everything changed. Miranda's proposition had been the catalyst, but the real transformation had come from finally using my skills for something that mattered. My phone rang as I reached my car. A new BMW with all the latest telematics features, naturally. Jack Avery. "Mr. Avery, this is Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI's Cybercrime Division. We have a situation that might interest you." I settled into the driver's seat, already intrigued. "I'm listening." "We've uncovered what appears to be a multi-state embezzlement scheme involving several financial services companies. The perpetrators are using sophisticated technology to manipulate accounting systems and hide their tracks." Sounds like my kind of challenge. "The case has some unusual aspects that remind us of your work on the Meridian investigation. Would you be available for consultation?" I started the engine, feeling the familiar thrill of a new puzzle to solve. "Agent Chen, I'll be there first thing Monday morning." As I drove through the city streets toward Murphy's Bar, I passed the Riverside Hotel, where Lila and Travis had conducted their affair. The building was being renovated, transformed into luxury condominiums. Even the physical locations of their deception were being erased and rebuilt. Murphy's was crowded with the usual mix of blue-collar workers and young professionals. Frankie waved me over to our regular table, where Gina was already holding court with a story about her latest customer drama. "There he is," she announced as I sat down, "the man who turned corporate fraud investigation into an art form." "Just doing my job," I said, accepting the whiskey that Frankie pushed across the table. "Your job," Frankie laughed, "is apparently making federal cases out of cheating spouses." The federal case was a bonus. The real satisfaction was watching them realize they weren't as smart as they thought they were. Gina leaned forward conspiratorially. "Speaking of which, I heard through the grapevine that Travis tried to contact you from prison. Something about wanting to apologize?" I nodded. "His lawyer reached out last month. Apparently Travis wants to make amends as part of some rehabilitation program." "You going to respond?" "Already did." I pulled out my phone and showed them the brief message I'd sent. "Apology noted, account still closed." The table erupted in laughter. Even after 6 months, the poetic justice of the situation never got old. As the evening wound down, I found myself thinking about the unexpected turns that life could take. A year ago, I'd been the overlooked husband, the technical support guy, the one who fixed other people's problems while his own went unnoticed. Tonight, I was the expert that federal agents called for consultation, the security director of a major financial firm, and the man who'd turned his greatest personal betrayal into his greatest professional triumph. My phone buzzed with a message from Miranda. "Dinner tomorrow? I have some ideas for our next project." I typed back, "Looking forward to it." As I walked to my car, I passed a young couple arguing on the sidewalk. The woman was accusing the man of lying about working late, while he protested his innocence with a kind of forced indignation that I recognized all too well. I almost stopped to give them some advice about GPS tracking and digital forensics, but decided against it. Everyone had to learn these lessons in their own way, in their own time. Besides, I had federal cases to solve and corporate fraud to prevent. The underdog days were over. I drove home through the city lights, past the office buildings where I'd once felt invisible, and the hotels where secrets had been traded like commodities. The GPS system in my dashboard announced each turn with mechanical precision, a constant reminder that in the digital age, everything leaves a trail. The key is knowing how to follow it. As I pulled into my parking garage, I realized that the best revenge hadn't been destroying Lila and Travis, though that had been satisfying. The best revenge had been transforming myself from victim to victor, from the guy who got played to the guy who wrote the playbook. I parked the car and headed up to my loft, where case files and federal consultation requests waited on my desk. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new puzzles to solve, new fraudsters to catch. But tonight, I was content to sit by my floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city lights and reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. From telematics consultant to federal expert, from betrayed husband to corporate security director, from underdog to top dog. The midnight audit was complete, and the books finally balanced.